Dyer's writings are where my thought process starts when it comes to the illustration of sociological symbolism, in particular when it's characters that signal othered sexuality or gender nonconformity. As far as what symbols and cues exemplify this signaling, it's useful to start with works that specifically illustrate people coming of age or living at the fringes of heteronormativity. The film Wolf Children centers on the growing pains of two wolf children, Ame and Yuki. Both signal as being nonconformist relatively early on, with Ame being the more shy, timid, and sensitive of the characters, whereas Yuki is exuberant, gross, and violent. Both children are half human, half wolf. As the film goes on, Ame starts to become the more independent, rebellious one, whereas Yuki bends to social pressure, rapidly conforming to the standards of other girls. With this development, the terms wolf and human emerge as signifiers for man and woman, respectively. Compounding this, the wolf side of both comes from the children's father, while the human side comes from the mother, and both children bend without resistance to natures that are evidently determined by their biological sexes. Of perhaps even deeper interest to Dyer would be the protagonist of London Spy, who is immediately represented at the start of the series by being a party boy who never connects at a deeper emotional level with other people, signaled as a sexual pleaser of other people via geisha symbolism. According to Roland Barthes, any system of symbols proposes a connection between a signifier and a signified. When the signifier and definite signified are brought together, they form a sign. The many mythological systems people are familiar with are also systems of signs. But myths are also a language. Specifically, myths have generally already been worked on to be suitable for communication. This complements the way that Dyer talks about signaling as a way of making certain types of people easily palatable for a mainstream audience to consume. It makes them a more easily digestible commodity in a sense. Speaking of commodities, Debord speaks of commodity fetishism as being societal domination by things whose qualities are at the same time perceptible and imperceptible by the senses. He calls this commodity of spectacle a place where the perceptible world is replaced by a set of images that impose themselves as eminently perceptible. By that metric, there are a number of films that could be said to commodify their subjects. There are a number of works about gay men marketed to women that break the men in question down to qualities that signify them as gay, coding them into masculine and feminine roles, as well as representing the whole of who they are to the female reader. There are also a number of works that arguably break women down into such characteristics and commodify them as the experience of what it means to be a woman to impressionable young girls. It shouldn't be said, however, that this commodification is purely based on sex or gender. Nakamura spoke at length about the manner by which worker-farmer characters in World of Warcraft were gradually abstracted into a certain racial type, with Gold Farmer coming to signify Chinese. Naturally, a number of fan videos commodifying the Chinese as an object of hatred followed. That being said, one can't really bend stereotypes and create progress if they don't have a base stereotype to work with. To relate the concept in a broader sense, the film Requiem for a Dream is flawed for the fact that there's no sign for that which is good in the film. Without a contrast, we have no perspective about the maladies plaguing the characters. If there is no good, there can be no evil, and vice versa. In the same respect, one can't actually define what a progressive description of a character is without one that's thought to be regressive. For example, the titular heroine of Revolutionary Girl Lieutenant isn't coded with masculine signs so that heterosexuality can be imposed on her relationship with Anthe, the love interest. Her character arc demonstrates her shifting fluidly between anima and animus, weighing the two against each other. And what we ultimately know about her is that she's free regardless of which gender she picked in the end. This is what the written language in general did for mankind. Language takes that which is nebulous and crystallizes it so we can observe it, discuss it, change it, etc. So using visual language to express characters, or expressing characters abstractly, can ultimately work to the advantage of those who want gender viewed as a spectrum, or more versatile cultural images in general. Barthes makes the distinction that meaningful semiology applied in fiction ought to be based on the historical context of the signifiers, as opposed to a free literary context. The current sociological problems of our culture can't really be understood without historical context either. Stereotypes have their own place in explaining the historical context of ridicule towards certain types of people. Undesirable though stereotypes may be, they're also necessary.